Most men with type 2 diabetes are told the same thing: cut carbs, take your meds, and lose some weight. But almost nobody talks about the single most powerful food group for men with high blood sugar, and that's protein. In this video, I'm breaking down 5 of the main reasons I think diabetic men need to eat more protein, and why just eating less bread isn't enough to reverse the disease or rebuild your body. I'm Dr. Adam. I help men over 40 reverse diabetes, get off meds, and rebuild their strength. And let me be blunt, the average diabetic man is under-eating protein by a mile. If you're only focused on lowering blood sugar, you're missing the bigger picture. Muscle, hormones, performance. Protein is the lever that shifts all 3 of these. So let's dive in. So reason number 1 is that protein kills cravings. It's a high satiety food. And let me give you a real example from one of my clients. He used to start his mornings with a big bowl of oatmeal and a spoonful of peanut butter. And he thought it was healthy because it said so on the box. Well, there's your first warning. But here's the problem. He didn't have a CGM. He was only checking his fasting glucose in the morning. And that means he was blind to what was actually happening after a meal like that. So every morning, this guy would eat his oatmeal thinking it was heart healthy because it was a whole grain. But by 10 a.m., he was already starving and he would then need a snack. He thought that that was just a normal cycle. What was really happening was that his blood sugar was spiking high after the oatmeal, since it's a grain, and then came crashing back down. So his body was just begging for another hit of carbs. Well, this guy had 3 major problems all before noon, and it was caused by his breakfast. So his meal was spiking his blood sugar, and then his blood sugar would come crashing back down, and then that would cause him to crave more carbs and ultimately overeat with a snack before lunch. Now, the fix for this guy was to first get him wearing a CGM so he could see for himself how that meal was affecting his blood sugar. And then, when he was armed with that insight, he was pretty motivated to swap his breakfast for a high protein option. So foods like eggs and turkey bacon and breakfast sausage. And then on our follow-up call a week later, he already noticed a major difference in his energy. And he told me that for the first time in years, he could actually make it to lunch without needing to raid the pantry because he worked from home. So that was a big deal, big win for him to stay out of the kitchen. And that's satiety. Satiety just means that you're not hungry, or at least you don't hit your trigger number for at least 4 hours after a meal. So your blood sugar is steady, your cravings are gone, and you're not hungry for those 4 hours. And protein is the single most reliable way to get you nice and full. Reason number 2, muscle is your metabolic engine. And here's the truth. You don't fix type 2 diabetes by just lowering your blood sugar. That only hides the problem. You fix it by retraining your body to use food for energy the right way. And muscle is the biggest part of that because your muscles are where most of your blood sugar goes. The more muscle you have, the bigger your sink for sugar. So think of it like this. Would you rather spend the rest of your life hiding from carbs, or would you rather build muscle so you can handle them? So stop eating just to lower the number on the piece of paper. Start eating to build muscle. That means more protein, strength training consistently, and using food as fuel for growth. And the result, you improve insulin sensitivity at the root. You don't just manage diabetes, you actively reverse it. All right, the next reason is post-meal blood sugar balance. So most guys only check fasting glucose first thing in the morning, and they think they're doing okay. But I found that a lot of the major damage happens after meals. So here's what's going on. A high carb meal gets digested quickly and then hits your bloodstream fast. But combine that with protein, and 2 things happen. Protein slows down digestion, so the carb drip is slower, and it triggers insulin secretion without spiking glucose, giving your body a head start to digest it. That's why a steak and vegetables will give you a nice flat CGM line, while pasta alone will send it into the stratosphere. Also, I've noticed that most people don't eat protein by itself, but they will often eat carbs alone. So things like the oatmeal I mentioned, pasta, pizza. If you want better blood sugar after meals, make protein the first thing on your plate and the biggest part of your meal overall. All right, the next reason that diabetic men need more protein is hormones. Most men who have diabetes already have low testosterone, and the research is clear that low protein diets will make that worse because protein is made of amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks for hormones. and neurotransmitters and the enzymes that keep you performing like a man. Without enough protein, you're not just underfueled, you're hormonally held back. And that means less energy, weaker erections, lower drive, and ultimately less muscle. And all of that means it's easier to gain belly fat and harder to have sex. Bad deal. Now, I've seen this all the time. When you eat more protein, you give your body the building blocks to keep testosterone and growth hormone strong. But here's an important note. If you stay low carb for too long, that can actually backfire and hurt your testosterone in the long run. And that's why the goal isn't 0 carbs forever. It's the right balance of protein, carbs, and training to rebuild your metabolism. I'll have most of the diabetic men I work with be pretty extreme about reducing the carbs for the first few months before then the strategic reintroduction phase. All right, the last reason to prioritize protein is metabolic resilience and aging insurance, is what I call it. Because as men age, we naturally lose muscle. So about 1% per year after 40 if we don't train. And man, does that add up. So for me, I carry about 90 pounds of muscle right now. And if I stop training, I'd lose about a pound every year. So by my 60s and 70s, that would leave me pretty weak and frail. And then you add diabetes to the mix, and that decline accelerates even faster. And that's why so many diabetic men look weak, they feel tired, even though they're only in their 60s. Then they tend to blame it on their age when there are plenty of 60-year-old men out there in the best shape of their life. Well, protein intake is your insurance policy against that decline, because with enough protein and strength training, you don't just hold the line, you rebuild. So more strength, better balance, less injury risk, and a metabolism that's harder to break if you do slip. In other words, protein isn't just a nutrient, it's protection against the slow decay that diabetes accelerates. So to recap, the 5 reasons diabetic men need more protein. Number 1, satiety. Protein kills cravings and keeps you full longer. Number 2 is muscle, the metabolic engine that reverses insulin resistance. Number 3, lower spikes. Proteins flatten your blood sugar curve after meals. Number 4, all about hormones. So protein protects testosterone and keeps you performing like a man. Number 5 is resilience. So it prevents age-related decline, helps keep your metabolism flexible. All right, if you've been told that diabetes is just about cutting carbs or just about taking meds, you've only heard half the story. Without prioritizing protein, you'll stay stuck in the same cycle, ultimately becoming dependent and weak. So here's what I recommend. At your next meal, lead with protein. Aim for about 30 grams of protein per meal. Make the protein the centerpiece. And then track how full you feel. Track your blood sugar 90 minutes after the first bite. And notice the difference in your body composition. All right, if you want more strategies to reverse diabetes and rebuild your body, hit subscribe. And if you're serious about fixing this, check the link below to work with me directly.